just gonna get stronger. I'm just gonna get stronger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Keep Looking Up podcast. I am your host, Caroline Kraddick, just coming down from the high that was last week. If you missed it, I got to interview Kelly frickin' Clarkson. The interview is still live if you want to go check it out. Oh, it was such an honor speaking with her. All the feedback that I got was so positive too. So thank you if you listened and reached out. And there was a theme. Everyone was saying, I felt like I was listening to two best friends talking and catching up. And I know so much about Kelly Clarkson and her talent and from what I've seen from her talk show, but her ability to connect with others, I think, is her superpower. I've never really witnessed someone at this capacity, and it is something that I want to emulate so badly because I feel like she just has a way about her that makes you feel so comfortable, so seen, so heard. And that's rare. And that's a very genuine quality that I think, especially in Hollywood these days, is lacking. So she is so refreshing and I just love her. And it was such an honor to speak with her, especially since she has been on my vision board for this podcast for 2 years. And what a perfect segue, talking about vision board, manifesting, all of those little spiritual words that we hear all the time that maybe sound a little woo-woo or magical and confusing. And that's where the book club of the month comes in. Ask and It Is Given by Ester and Jerry Hicks. So we are going to talk about it. It's our first book club, I guess you could call it review episode. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have the rest of this year planned out book-wise. And I started probably with the most woo-woo book of them all. A lot of the books I have picked are not as woo-woo as this, but I wanted to give some background on my mindset because I am a little bit woo-woo. How many times can I say woo-woo in the first 3 minutes of this podcast? But I also look at all of this manifesting and law of attraction stuff as science-based because there is a lot of neuroscience that can back it up. And that helps me conceptualize it a little bit better because otherwise you feel like you're just putting all this information out into the universe and you want to manifest, but you don't want to hold on to it too tightly. And if you manifest it, you got to let it go and come back. Like all these things that we hear about spirituality. And I heard a really interesting spin on this when I was kind of just starting my spiritual journey. And that was with Susie Batiste, who is my idol. And she explained all of this in a way that really made sense to me in my brain. So I wanted to, before I talk about my favorite parts of Ask and It Is Given and what I learned, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of where the science comes in with this so that you don't think that it's woo-woo. So, and also, I don't have all of this stuff figured out. I'm not exactly where I want to be in every way in my career, in my personal life, all of these things. I'm still actively searching and wanting more. But I will say in the past 6 months since trying to change my mindset a little bit and starting to implement some of these manifesting ideologies, I guess you could say, I have seen a lot of improvement in my life. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, my whole life changes manifesting. It has really, really affected my mindset and my life. And so I want to be upfront with that because I think sometimes when people claim to be experts on something, which I don't claim to be an expert on any of this, but sometimes if they claim to be an expert, you look to them like they have to have everything figured out. And I think this is a more interesting route to go about it because I am implementing in real time, and you guys are seeing in real time what's happening in my life. And look at all the beautiful things that have happened since I've started changing my mindset and manifesting things. Like I got Kelly Clarkson. I have been really consistent with my podcast. I've been getting so much good feedback on it. It feels like it's making traction. I'm getting a lot more brand deals with my social media. There's so many good things that have happened since I've started implementing this. So that I wanted to get out of the way so that you feel a little bit better of someone's not preaching like I have it all figured out. I'm still very much on this journey and I'm still implementing as I go. So let's do it together. Okay, so here is the preface to Asking It Is Given. So because I know it turns me off a little bit in Asking It Is Given with the high vibration and things that I don't really understand very well yet. Nor do I know if I will ever be in that like, oh, my vibration's high. I don't know. For now, it feels a little out of touch. So here's what I want to say before we get into all this. Manifesting and asking God or the universe, whatever you want to say, for what you want can kind of seem very ethereal, but it's actually a mix of quantum physics, which I could spend so much time researching more and plan on it. And still my little pea brain has a hard time conceptualizing what that is, and neuroscience. So what I've learned is our brain has a filtering system. And part of that filtering system is the brain asking questions and finding the answer. And your brain is designed to find the answer. There will always be an answer. And that's something that Susie Batiste taught me very early on. So, and also on top of that, our brains are negatively biased, and that's so we can protect ourselves, and we have healthy things like fear and negativity and all of those things to keep us safe. But most of the time they end up prohibiting us from being the person that we want to be because of things like fear. So when we're constantly asking questions like our brain does, usually if your brain has not experienced the thing that you want, your brain will say, no, it's not possible. For instance, if I make 70 grand a year and I see someone making $1 million, the question in my brain is, can I do that? Can I make that money? And the answer to my brain, who's activating out of fear and this is out of my comfort zone and the unknown, says no. So your life stays the same. So that's the question answer that's happening when you see people who are doing things that you want to do and living a life that you want to emulate. Our negative brain tells ourselves we can't do that. So if we switch the question, instead of can I have that? Can I achieve that? We need to start asking the question, how can I find an opportunity to blank? So how can I find an opportunity to make more money? How can I meet my perfect match? Your brain then is going to start finding the answer to that question because your brain always finds the answer. So what this does is you start finding opportunities and good news in everything because your brain is searching for answers. So this activates your reticular activating system, which will get you focused on the good and all the opportunities. So anytime you're speaking with someone, it just is about changing that negative mindset to always looking for the negative, because your brain will always find what you're looking for too. Think of if you go to the car dealership to get a new car and you see a white car that you really like, you start seeing white cars everywhere, right? So it can be the same thing with negativity or positivity. So if your reticular activating system is looking for positive, good things, and it has to be a conscious choice at the beginning, but then it kind of goes on autopilot, and then you really end up attracting a lot of really good things. And as it was given would say you're high vibrational. So you're getting high vibrational opportunities. So I hope that kind of makes sense before we start into getting in the nitty gritty of what my favorite parts were. Because I know this book was challenging for me too, guys. I hadn't read it cover to cover yet. I had read chapters in the past. I've had this book for years. And especially on TikTok, you see a lot of Abraham Hicks. I feel like this book is everywhere. So this one, as I was reading, I was like, oh gosh, I hope people don't get turned off to my book club, because this one was intense. It was intense, but I feel like if you understand the takeaways of what I'm telling you before, that will help your mindset with this book. So if you haven't read it, there is a lot of stuff that I honestly took with a grain of salt, because when it gets to the high vibrational, low vibrational quantum physics stuff, again, like I said, my pea brain cannot really understand that yet. So, but I did take a lot away from this book. So let's get into it. The book starts, and this might have been a turnoff for people, explaining who and what Abraham Hicks is. So Ester and Jerry Hicks, I guess Abraham channels through Esther Hicks, and it is her higher being that she has named Abraham, and Abraham comes and gives her information. So if you're reading this, like, what the actual F, like, who's Abraham? I get it. Again, we're just taking away things that we can take away from this. And that's like a whole other thing that we don't need to worry about right now, But basically, Ask and It Is Given talks about manifesting. It talks about the law of attraction. It talks about, the high and low vibe. So the takeaways that I got has a lot to do with mindset. And Abraham points out that everything we think about with enough focus eventually manifests. So that says a lot. If you're constantly thinking about your lack of money, your lack of relationship, whatever it is that you are lacking, you're going to stay in that cycle for a really long time. And as easy as it is to get stuck in that cycle and feel like you're not going anywhere, it's just as easy to get out of that mindset and to start having a different mindset. So really focusing on what you're receiving, whether it's social media, what you're reading, whether it's people around you. I think all of that really is so important that we filter out the negative, and you need to do what you need to do to make that happen. But what Abraham is saying is how powerful our brain is. And we don't always allow our desires to come through most of the time because our fear and excuses get the best of us. But what I also thought was really cool was, especially coming from like a Catholic background, I think it can be also confusing if you do subscribe to a religion of this higher power who already may or may not have a plan for you. So what is really based on free will and what's based on what's already predetermined or what God wants for me? It can also feel very confusing. But what is explained in this book that kind of resonated with me on a religious sector is our minds carry an unlimited amount of ideas waiting to be manifested in the physical realm. So I think how I took that is, when God or the universe puts something in your brain, it's for a reason. I think we have a lot of stupid thoughts, or at least I do. But I think if you have something on your heart that really feels like a passion or a calling to you, I don't think that those thoughts are put into your head for nothing. And that is something that is explained throughout the book, but it kind of makes you feel validated in that anything that goes through your brain that can be used for the greater good was probably put there for a purpose. And as far as how to get there, of identifying your needs and wants, asking for them, and then leaving them alone. That's really the core of the teaching of this book. So they explain it as there's 3 universal steps in the ask and it is given process. The first is asking. The second is letting the universe or God do its job. And then the third is receiving it. So your job is to state the desire and then keep up with the thoughts matching it, which is, I am worthy, I deserve this, I influence people everywhere I go, I'm a money-making machine. That's where your affirmations come in. So your job is to state the desire, then keep your thoughts matching it. That's really important. I think that's where a lot of people misstep, is they think of an idea, they ask for it, and then they go back to that negative thinking of like, oh, well, I'm really not going to get it. So it's almost brainwashing yourself to believing that it is going to happen and you are worthy. And then God or the universe will do the rest. That they will set up the right time, the people involved, all of that. And where I was going earlier with having a thought be on your brain that is given from God, according to Abraham, the earth is made as a platform to develop our creations. And our purpose here on the planet is to simply create and have fun doing it. And since childhood, we're taught rules that dull that imagination, that prohibit us from creating what we desire. And so we stop producing. And I think creating is the highest you can get to being close to God. And when I'm creating something out of nothing, that's when I feel the most powerful. But if I let my negative mindset get in the way, I'm not going to be putting anything out of quote unquote high vibe. So that's where all that kind of like comes together. And that also goes into the emotional guidance system that they talk about. Basically, if you're sad, you're having low vibrations. If you're happy, you have high vibrations. And I think this can be a little problematic because people with mental health issues, depression, all that, if you're depressed, you're going to be sad, you're going to be low vibe. But again, I think it's more talking about how to gauge your emotions as you're going through your manifesting process. And I think that also I really connected with, because say you have a desire and you're pouring your whole heart and soul. I've seen this, especially coming from a performance background. I have seen so many of my friends from high school and college who have a dream, are still working their ass off for that dream. And maybe at this point in their life, they don't even really want to be doing it anymore, but they've invested everything that they have in it and they don't really see any other options. And I think keeping up with your emotional guidance system while you're in the process of working on your dreams is so important, because at some point, I'm sure my friends who are feeling burnout and don't want to do this anymore have had little emotional triggers that they have ignored of, hey, I don't know if I'm feeling this anymore. And I think that lets you off the hook. It keeps you present and it keeps you working on towards what you actually want to get. So many of us get blinders on. We're working on a goal. We have all this in mind when it's really in reality not what we even want anymore. So when they're talking about the emotional guidance system, I think that's how you implement it best, is just using your emotions to gauge where you're at and how you're feeling about everything. So another big section that they talk about is law of attraction. And it's what I was talking about with the white car. You get what you think about, whether you want it or not. So if you're constantly thinking about the negative, you're going to, again, be flooded with negative thoughts, because whatever your brain is seeking for and searching for, it'll find proof of that. And that's also something I learned 3 or 4 years ago with Susie, is your brain always wants, just like it always wants to find an answer, it always wants to be right as well. So if you have this narrative, and I've seen it in myself, I listened back to me on the Kraddick show in my mid-20s as I'm dating, and I was doing it in a self-deprecating way. I really didn't feel like I actually thought I was unlovable or undateable or anything, but I kind of just made it a little bit of a bit and would talk in a manner that wasn't indicative of where I was really at. And it would make me feel maybe it would make me feel better that I had control of the narrative. Like, oh, you know me, I'm just perpetually single and, men are trash, all of that narrative. And I've stopped doing that now. And it makes it so much easier to move around in the world and to be dating and all. If we're talking about dating in that instance, it just makes it so much easier when all of those thoughts are out of my head. And my point is that your thoughts are so incredibly powerful. So if you have a narrative that you can't date and will never find someone, your brain is going to perpetuate that because that's what it does. So it's going to find evidence in everything that you do to prove that you're right. So that's why it's so easy to flip. So and I think the most imperative thing about all of this is you're going to feel really delusional doing it at first because it doesn't resonate with you. It's not something you felt before. You get imposter syndrome. It's unnatural. And that's when you quit. But I think it's so important to flip that mindset, change the narrative from, if it's dating, oh, I'm undateable, I can't find anyone, I'm too flawed, I have too much baggage, to I am great at connecting. I am a wonderful, caring, supportive partner. I show grace and joy when I move around in the world, and creating this identity that you want. And again, that can go into any facet of your life. I talk about morning routine. If you don't have a morning routine, you talk about how you want one all the time, but I'm too disorganized, I'm too scattered, I can't do it. You just start acting like that's not the case. And you start emulating your higher self and moving around like your higher self would. And it just becomes natural. So it's very uncomfortable at the beginning because it's not something that you're familiar with and your brain doesn't like to be uncomfortable. But once you move through that and you start kind of brainwashing yourself into feeling the opposite of how you're feeling, you'll notice a huge, huge difference. I cannot tell you, this has made such a difference. I talk to myself way kinder when it comes to work and relationships and everything in my life. I have higher regard for myself. So I've been getting more opportunities because I have been telling myself that I'm capable. And it can feel like with this, okay, how do I control my thoughts? You cannot control your thoughts. You're going to have thoughts that come in your brain 24/7. I think we have 70,000 thoughts a day. That's so many thoughts. And it's so much for your brain to interpret. I think what's important is knowing we cannot control our thoughts, but knowing how to direct them. And that comes with practice. That's they talk about this extensively in the book on ways that you can do this. But the more practice you do, it will become a dominant thought. And then you can become what they call deliberate creator in this life. So again, it's changing those small thoughts to be dominant thoughts that are little thoughts of, oh, maybe I can do this. And also in the book, they talk about because speaking of imposter syndrome, if you're standing there in the mirror every day and you're overweight and you want to lose weight and you're telling yourself, I am thin, I have a good relationship with food, I love my body, your brain's gonna be like, bullshit. Because I know I've been there. So if you're thinking while you're standing in the mirror trying to do your affirmations, which again is just brainwashing your brain into believing how worthy and capable you are, and you're calling bullshit on it, it's not going to work. So a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that, including me. I don't want to sit in the mirror and try to brainwash myself sometimes that I'm going to do all this because it's not really entering my whole being. It's not really coming through. So a way to get past that, instead of, if you're not comfortable with, I am thin, I have a good relationship with food, all of these things, start saying, I'm working on loving my body. I am getting better every day at loving my body. I have so many opportunities to be the healthiest person that I can be, and I look forward to accepting more of those opportunities. If it's work, if you're sitting in the mirror saying, I make $1 million a year, and you're calling your own bullshit on that, you start saying again, I am improving every day. I am attracting more money every day. The more work I do, the more opportunity comes my way. So you can do it as more of I'm working on it instead of I have it. And then once you can interpret, oh, I'm working on it, then you can get to, oh, I have it. And it won't feel as disruptive to have those kind of thoughts. And the other biggest takeaway is that you are co-creating with God or the universe to make your most perfect life. I am an action-based person. I want to always be doing and making sure that I'm moving forward. And it can all feel, especially if we're talking relationship, for me, being in my 30s, having this timeline of wanting to have babies and having the societal pressure, it can really make me question where I'm at and why am I in this place. And the more I question that and the more I give my attention to that, the more I'm going to be stuck in that place. So where I've been able to take it, again, I am just now exploring all of this and seeing the benefits of all of it. I have started telling myself the universe has got me. I list it out. And I think too, having your control in it and making lists and really deciding what you want to manifest is so important, just so you can put it out in the universe, but also so that you can keep up with really what you want to do and you can see it all laid out and see how it's possible to do all of this stuff. So I think so many people live an unexamined life and have goals that they want to achieve, but they're not really focused on them. And again, I think what ruins all of our dreams sometimes is that our thoughts, after we tell the universe that we want them, our thoughts are not matching because we don't feel worthy. And as woo-woo and as quantum physics-y and as science-y and neuroscience as all of this stuff is, I think that is the most beautiful takeaway, is we do have control over what we want because of those thoughts that come into our brain, I feel like are put there for a reason. And continuing on that path by being strategic about what you want, asking, and then the nugget of goodness that I learned very quickly from this book that I've regurgitated to all my friends is the road trip analogy of, I think I've talked about it on here, is if you're on a 14-hour road trip and you have friends that left 2 hours before you and you're like, oh, they're going to get there before me. I'm so pissed. But what can you really do about it? You could be stressed, trying to make up time here and there to try to catch up with them, stressing yourself out, putting people at risk on the road. You could do all of those things to try to catch up to the people around you. Or you could say, you know what? I have a 14-hour road trip. I am going to enjoy the scenery. And so much is let off the hook for us if we look at life through a lens of, what if it's already there for me? What if it's promised and it's on the way? That feels so good. What if I know, how would I live my life if I knew that all of this was coming to me? I just had to go on that 14-hour road trip to get there. I would be okay with it. I wouldn't stress. I wouldn't question why. I wouldn't resent the place that I'm at. I wouldn't resent my friends for being farther along than me because we're just on two different road trips and we'll all end up at the same place eventually. But trying to control it and stress yourself out on the way there does absolutely no good. So being strategic about what you want, asking for it, enjoying the ride, having full belief that it is there waiting for you, that I think is the perfect way to make your dreams a reality. And Mel Robbins has a new podcast all about how dreams are so necessary, even if we have huge dreams that we will never accomplish. Having that guidance and having that thing to strive for is so important, because all of the really successful entrepreneurs and business people I know, they know how to pivot. And that is so important. So having this dream, but then being flexible in what that actually looks like and your way to get there, it can be up to the universe. And you may end up doing something that you never imagined, but it ends up being your true passion and your true calling. So that's what I got from Asking It Is Given. I apologize in advance if it was too heady and woo-woo. But I think I summed it up in a way, hopefully, that will resonate with you if you did not read the book or you did. So I think it's a really good one if you can take away the big items and start working on changing your mindset, getting those positive affirmations in, and just truly believing that you are worthy, because you guys are all incredibly worthy of anything that you desire. Again, because I think God doesn't put any desire or any thought in your brain that isn't useful to you in some way. So for next month, I was planning on doing the first week of the month, but and Kelly Clarkson takes precedence over the book club. So it'll be at the first of the month. We are going to do for July's book club, which I think is so apropos, because also in July, I want to tell you guys, I've talked, I feel like ad nauseum, about my dad's anniversary coming up of his passing. He passed July 27th of 2013. So every week in July, I will be playing interviews of me interviewing people who worked with my dad or were mentored by him or affected by him in any way. And I've been working on them, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. And it's been really cool for me to be doing these interviews and finding out things about my dad, maybe that I didn't know. So, for July, since we're celebrating my dad, we are going to, which Kelly Raspberry and I talk about in our interview that we will put out in July, about the 4 Agreements. This was my dad's favorite book. He read it once a year. I read it once a year. It's short. It's sweet. It's not too woo-woo. I think you guys are really going to love it. And it's a great way to pay homage to Kraddick. So, y'all have a month to start reading. I think you should be able to get through it quickly. Again, it's really easy to grasp and just good for 4 things that you should lead your life with. So I think you guys are really going to like it. It will be on my Amazon store. And like I said, we will do that at the 1st of July. And let's see, I'm trying to think if I have any other information that you guys need. The author of 4 Agreements is Don Miguel Ruiz, by the way. And it came out in 97. And all of the spiritual people that I follow absolutely love this book. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. All right, y'all, stay posted on social. We've got some fun stuff coming up, and keep looking up, because that's where it all is.
I'm just gonna get stronger. I'm just gonna get stronger.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe and rate. Keep looking up anywhere you stream your podcasts. And to stay up to date on all my latest episodes, you can follow at KLU Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or on my website at carolinekraddick.com. And always remember, keep looking up, because that's where it all is.